Okay, I recently did hear the video on setting up the ambush as part of the post-event survival community series. Now, the previous one to that, we patrolled up to the site, we did a security halt was done, we then set up our ambush. Now, in that ambush, I included a tactic that I had mentioned a few years ago. In a video on halting an enemy counterattack from the ambush site or on the ambush site. This will be part 2 to that one. And I will put a link to the original video in the description. Over on YouTube, it'll be in a pinned comment. Now, this tactic is meant to keep the enemy in the kill zone as long as possible, so that even if you're a smaller force, the chances of you completely wiping out the enemy force goes up. Now, here's generally how it's set up. You're not going to put it out in the open like this. I just do it for the demonstration. You would actually set this in taller vegetation, so it would be back in that stuff back there. This would not be right next to the edge of the trail. This would be inside the vegetation a bit, a couple meters. How far in front of your ambush position should something like this be set up? I would think of between 10 to 15 meters in front of. You want to be able to use your hand grenades if needed. Now, as I mentioned in part 1, the idea for this comes from 2 sources. First off, a book, The Last 100 Yards by H. John Poole, where he talked about including a trip cord or trip wire in front of your ambush position to slow the target from countering attack into your ambush to take you out so that he can break the ambush. And then I thought about it and I included in there, you could use punji stakes. Now, the idea for that came from a movie produced around the time of World War II called American Guerrilla in the Philippines. Now, I did some researching on that movie. It actually did draw from the experiences of people who fought in the resistance in the Philippines during World War II. And I did some other checking, came across this. There are videos in the Imperial War Museum in the United Kingdom and Britain that show British troops training on using punji stakes and pikes on the sides of the trails between the ambush force and the Japanese forces when they walk into the ambush. So this is a tactic that very likely could have been done. It's possible. Have I come across references this specific setup yet? No, I haven't. But the theory at least has been out there. Now, the general setup. Your trip cord should be set higher than the ankle, below the knee, so that as the enemy is charging at you to try to get through or get out of the kill zone, he's coming through, runs, hits the trip cord, loses his balance and falls forward. So you want to make sure the cordage that you're using is not going to break. It is tied off very good to whatever you're using on the sides, whether it's trees, stakes, fence posts, whatever's out there. Now, behind this, approximately 1 meter, about 3 feet back, you're going to have punji stakes or pikes, depending on your length. These should be set at an angle, as you see here. Distance between them, figure 10 to 12 inches, so that figuring the average width of a human body, someone falling forward, they're going to hit at least one of these. So your enemy would be coming forward, hit the cord. The natural human reaction when you start falling, you throw your hands out in front of you. They could potentially lose their weapon if it's not dummy corded to them or held onto them with some type of sling. Fall forward, and as they're falling, they're throwing their arms out to try to catch themselves. Well, momentum is still going to drive them down onto the punji stakes. The punji stakes are not meant to kill them. It is just meant to seriously injure them, slow them up, so that you on the ambush have another second or two, you can take that person out. And quite frankly, if the enemy troops hit this type of stuff, the first ones that are counterattacking through, they start hitting, falling, ending up on the punji stakes. The ones that are a little bit slower behind, they might think twice. So then they could potentially surrender. They could throw down their weapons and run away. Depends on the motivation of that force. Either way, you bought yourself a little bit of time. But here's the basic setup. As you see, cordage can be 550 cord, can be rope. John Poole recommended using old communications wire, field telephone wire. You could use barbed wire. You want something that's not going to snap from that tension of someone hitting it and falling over it. It actually should be tied tighter than this. We just got this thrown together as a demonstration. About 3 feet in front of that, 1 meter, you should have sharpened punji stakes set at an angle for the person to fall down onto and impale themselves. If they somehow jump over the cord, make it through the punji stakes, they're still standing upright, still gives you a decent shot on them. Another way to look at it. Because they're having to slow themselves just a little bit to try to avoid this obstacle. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot Militia movements, always remember, essay ons.